name is Josh. I'm an alcoholic from Houston, Texas.
Hey, Josh.
So my sobriety date is February 26th of 2016. And for me, I guess it's kind of funny you mentioned the last minute. And I was planning on coming to this meeting anyway, since I didn't get on my home group this morning. And it was just one of those things that turned out that, well, yeah, now I have a reason to come to this meeting. So clearly I was supposed to be here. But for me, my story, I'm sure like a lot of people, I started drinking pretty heavily when I was in college. I drank a little bit in high school, but not too much, and drank pretty significantly in college. Had some issues with alcohol, with passing out and blacking out and those kinds of things. But after college, was able to kind of ramp it down a little bit and keep it to manageable levels, and go through and primarily be relatively a social drinker. Had a couple of scrapes here and there, some things that could have gone worse than they did. But primarily, it kind of my disease really kind of kicked into overdrive, obviously relatively recently. And it started getting worse, primarily focused around, looking back at it, focused around my job. And basically I wasn't able to maintain a level of handling things that I couldn't control. Most of my career, I had done a good job of controlling everything. And then things started to happen that I couldn't control. I couldn't keep things on wraps. And so my only solution for every problem that I had growing up was drinking. So that was how I dealt with everything, good, bad, indifferent. I drank over it. And when things kind of continued to spiral at work, my drinking started to spiral. And I would have times where I would pass out in the middle of the day. Luckily, I was working remotely, so I'd work from my house, so no one else noticed. But my wife did. And so there was a couple of times where I had to do some creative storytelling, and I had to do some things of, claiming I had a sleep disorder, and use that as an excuse. I used the allergy excuse a lot to try and get away from my bloodshot eyes. How much that excuse actually worked, I don't really know. But things started to get progressively worse. I would be able to kind of keep things under control for a little bit, and then things would spiral, periodically. But towards the end, probably the last, 6 or 7 months of my drinking, it was an everyday ordeal. And it was the first thing I did when I got up in the morning was have a drink. And I remember when I, would have that drink, it wasn't just a small glass. I mean, this was a full, 32-ounce glass, and I could barely fit a can of Coke in there. So, and that was what I had before anyone else in the house got up. I would then drive my daughter to school. What I would blow on a breathalyzer, I have no idea. So I did this every day. I drove her to work that way, came home, drank some more, and then, would pick her up from school. Whether or not I passed out during the day is, depended. And this, then I'd kind of wait for everyone to go to sleep, and kind of muddle through the few hours where everyone else is awake. And then I would, continue to drink and just pass out. And that was how I lived my life for a good, probably about 7 or 8 months. And things just, never got any better. I was kind of holding down a job, but then I ended up getting let go from that job. Kind of my fault, kind of not my fault, kind of drinking's fault, kind of not drinking's fault. There's a lot of things that happened, but clearly, if I hadn't been drinking, I probably would have done a better job at that job. But being the alcoholic that I was, I didn't tell anybody. So no one knew that I was laid off from that job till I went into to rehab, a few months later. But things, progressed. I'm trying to lie about everything. I ended up one night blacking out, having a kind of conversation with my wife at the time, and she recorded it. And she was, I ended up going into bed and passing out. She ended up calling my parents and having a conversation with them about what was going on. That next, I didn't realize this till the next day, but the next morning I got up and went to jury duty. And on my way to jury duty, it's about a 30-mile drive for me to get from my house to the courthouse. On my way, I decided that I needed to fix myself, another drink to have on my drive up to jury duty. Didn't see anything wrong with that at all. And then 2 days later, had another passing out episode. Both of these times, both Monday and Wednesday, I passed out while looking after my daughter. So at some point, I put her to bed. And luckily nothing happened. But that was the last straw, and that was the night that we decided that I would go into treatment. And what I vividly remember at that point was not so much the arguing or anything like that. It was that for that one moment, I was able to ask for help, and that was the start of being able to stop all of the chaos. And I, was able to sit there and say, yes, I need help. So I talked to my parents and ended up going through outpatient rehab. And during this time, I fully admitted that I could not control my drinking, that I had a problem, but I wasn't 100% sure how bad it really was. Of course, looking back at it, clearly I had, some real serious issues, but I wasn't so sure. I thought maybe if I learn some things, figure some things out, I could cope with some things better. Maybe it wouldn't be that bad. So at 3 months sober, I decided that I needed to prove it to myself. I needed to, understand what was going on and really figure out if I drink like a normal person. So like the book says, I went and did the experiment. And as I'm sure like many of you can imagine, I failed miserably. It was less than a week and I was horribly out of control. Again, driving, while drunk, and I somehow I did not get a DUI throughout any of this behavior. Although I should have had, I don't know how many DUIs with my child in the car, so felonies and all sorts of stuff, but I didn't. And so that that adventure proved to me that yes, I am an alcoholic, and that this is me for the rest of my life. So I started to, go to meetings and really start to kind of try to pay attention. At this time, I'm also unemployed. So trying to find a job and those kinds of things. And, I did a lot of work on a lot of things. But mainly I was just trying to stop drinking and really just trying to deal with how do I not drink over things and how do I not deal with that. And I really wasn't working the program. And I was able to do that for about 9 months or so. And I got to a point where I was sober. I did have a job, but I was miserable. I just wasn't happy at all. And I could just tell that I wasn't doing something right. So at that point, I ended up, I wasn't talking to my sponsors. So I switched sponsors, I switched groups, and I really just started to look around and say, all right, what are some of the other people have in these rooms that I want to have, or things that I look forward to, or that I, admire in other people. And just start asking people, how did you do it? And what kinds of things did you do? So all of the things that you hear people talk about, about calling people and talking to others and doing all those things, those started to become parts of my life. I started to go to meetings before meetings. My sponsor and I started to do a literature group before a meeting. So the group that I was going to, it meets at 7 a.m. on the weekends. So we were there at 6 and doing the literature group, and hanging out afterwards after the meeting. And I started to notice that although things in my life weren't necessarily getting better, I was feeling better about things. At this point, really started to focus on trying to fix some things. Now, that wasn't an overnight process. I ended up a little bit later having my financial bottom, as all of the other lies that I was telling finally started to catch up with me. So I couldn't quite play all the games that I wanted to. So I had to come clean with that. And, a little bit later, I had my relationship bottom and ended up getting divorced. But through all those things, I didn't drink over it. And I still have all of my 4 steps, and I go back and look at the first real 4 step that I did, and all the fears that I had on my list, and all of them have come true. And it's just one of those things that I look at that, and all the things that I used to be afraid of, they're not that scary anymore, because they've all come true. And I look at my life now, and I look at all the things that I have, which when I look at it from a possession standpoint, is not that much. I'm living in an apartment. I don't have my house anymore. I don't have all the flashy cars I used to have, or all the things that I used to have. But I have enough. I have the things that I need. I have a adorable 6-year-old daughter who hopefully will never have to see me drunk again. Hopefully she doesn't remember the times that I was drunk. And I have enough to keep me going strong. I have the ability to ask for help. I'm going through another period of time where I'm unemployed again, this time by my own choice. I had the whatever you want to call it, strength or stupidity or whatever it is, or foresight or whatever, to quit my job. It was a job that I thought was my dream job, and I walked away. It was one of those things that I could see was causing problems with my spiritual health, my mental sanity, what little of it that I have. But it was causing me some problems. So I walked away. And, I was able to do that because I was able to ask for help. I was able to ask for help from my parents, from my friends, from people in these rooms, and to go through and do that. And, I mentioned these rooms as I'm sitting here in my apartment, in a virtual room. But online meetings for me have been such an important part of my sobriety. And it's so reassuring to know that these kinds of rooms are available. I've been going to another group that's on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and it's just, from a timing perspective, it works out better for me. But, I have my daughter half-time, so every other week I have her. I can't go to meetings as much when I have her, just because, I don't feel it's appropriate for me to bring her to meetings. That's my opinion of how I want to do things, and I can't leave her alone. So it's just one of those things of, I could, but CPS might have other ideas about that. So for me, this has been a great resource to go through and do that, and to have opportunities to do fellowship before and after, to do service, to do all the things that all sorts of other AA groups do. This has been one of those revelations for me that's allowed me to do that, and allowed me different ways of being of service and to help other alcoholics. So yeah, I think I'll go ahead and I don't know how long I've been going. I feel like I've been going forever, so I'll go ahead and wrap up there. Thank you for the opportunity to do service, and I look forward to hearing some shares tonight. Thanks.